And I know that the American people have a dim view of the United Nations. In fact, a Gallup poll just came out recently, said 60% of the people have a negative view about the United Nations. And most people in America say, oh, it's a waste of time, it never gets anything done, and so forth. No, that's not so. It's lurking in the background and poised and ready to take total control. The people who are supposedly solving the problems aren't solving the problems. What they're doing is building more power for themselves at our country level and then internationally and so forth. You got the EU working into this now. EU ministers are saying globalism is the answer. We've got to have that. I suppose you probably know that the $170 billion that's been given to AIG, the American International Group here, most of that money that they got immediately went to pay their debts in Europe. It didn't help America, you know. Not that it should have been done in the first place, but there's a good example. And then, of course, you have them going after the bonuses that were paid, which is 1/10% of the money that's been given to AIG. And if they stop the bonuses, the people are going to say, well, at least the government's doing the right thing. No, it's not doing the right thing. It's diverting attention from the real problem, which is $170 billion being given to an organization that should have been allowed to fail.
And that's only one of many globalist organizations, and there's no discussion of the franchise owner, of the big billionaire George Soros, David Rockefeller, Rothschild types who were actually getting the money from the bailout. Meanwhile, they divert everybody with, oh, look at these CEOs who work for them, as you said, getting a pittance, a tiny fraction of the real money.
A gnat on a bull elephant. That's what it is. You know, but the people are saying, oh, okay, at least they're doing something right. No, they're not doing something right. First of all, if a company wants to give somebody a bonus, it's none of the government's business in the first place.
That's right.
That's another principle.
That's right. It sets the precedent to come in and regulate every facet of the economy, and now that's the new power that they're saying they want to give Geithner, is to go after not just banks but other companies.
Right. Now, Geithner's an interesting guy. He was the head of the New York Federal Reserve, right? The New York Fed is the power. There's 12 member banks in the Federal Reserve System. A lot of them, it's just window dressing. The power is New York. Not even in Washington. They have a big, beautiful building in Washington. I've been inside that building. Right? Big, beautiful building, but the power is in New York City, and Geithner was the head of it. All right? And what has Geithner accomplished? He's accomplished, as the head of the Fed, continuing a process of printing tremendous amounts of money that lowers the value of everybody's money. I like to say when I was a boy, I could buy a candy bar for a nickel, and now it costs a dime. But the candy costs the same. The value of the dollar has gone down 95% since 1945. Where did it go? It was stolen from the American people by a process called inflation. And inflation is not only thievery, it can destroy your nation, as it did Germany after the Weimar Republic and their inflation.
Well, that's the plan they've stated, is to blow out the world's currencies and then set up a new super currency that controls regional currencies. And they're now announcing at the G20 coming up in April. And I was just watching Gordon Brown online
Bad man.
A few days ago before the European Parliament. And he said a global Europe, that's a quote, global Europe dominating the entire planet. And he said world government financial control over every nation, setting world tax rates. They got a world army. They got a world court. They're coming in with world taxation and regulation. Can you speak to the phony carbon taxes and the environmental movement, what that's really about? Because you've exposed that.
Well, first of all, global warming is a charade, in my view. Yes, temperatures go up and temperatures go down. It's not caused by you and me driving our automobile or hairspray or any of that stuff. This whole global warming thing is a charade, a farce. And what it's designed to do is to give government more power. Once again, you see the same thing. So now they've decided that they have to have carbon taxes in order to shut down more of America's industrial power. Much of it has already been shut down by outsourcing and by NAFTA and the rest of it. So they want global carbon tax, and the United States is going to have to pay taxes in order to continue doing any industrial activity. In order to solve a problem that's not going to be solved by cutting back on carbon. Carbon dioxide is wonderful. Carbon dioxide is something that all plants eat. You want carbon dioxide. If you have carbon dioxide, you're going to have better trees, better bushes, better crops, better everything. And it's just bonkers. Everything's backwards. And we got all kinds of experts out there. We got these experts in the economic field and experts in the so-called environmental field, people like Al Gore. If he's an expert, I'm a Martian.
Well, he's very arrogant. He had nothing to do with the internet, and he claims he invented it.
He invented the internet. That's right. Yeah.
Which was around in its infancy when he was in college. But expanding on that, because you've written books on this, I've seen you give speeches. We've played some of your speeches here on the local cable access where I started out many years ago, waking folks up. Bob Dacey does it down there. Also writes for the New American. Expanding on this, can you break down for folks why the globalists want to destroy industrial bases of nation states, why they want to weaken all nations? Then they have this big international body that then finances and controls what's left of those countries. I mean, they know carbon dioxide isn't bad. They're cold-bloodedly wanting to tax the carbon cycle.
Right. Well, it's very simple. It leads to world government. You can't merge the United States with some of the poor backward countries in Africa without destroying the United States first. And that's what it's at. That's what I said earlier with Volcker testifying before the U.S. Senate. The standard of living of the average American has to go down. I don't think you can escape that. That's what he said, and the senators sat there and took it. And they should have thrown him right out of the room. Say, anybody who wants to destroy the standard of living of the people of the United States should not be getting confirmation by the U.S. Senate to lead the Federal Reserve. And that confirmation is a charade, too. Everybody who goes before the Senate for confirmation for a Federal Reserve job always gets passed. Right? The Fed comes to the president and said, we want you to nominate this guy, and that's who they nominate. Well, we went from Volcker to Greenspan. Now we got Bernanke, who's a disciple of Greenspan. And what's he calling for? He's calling for more government regulation. He's calling for more government power and so forth. You can't have more and more and more of something without filling it up. And when they fill it up, it's going to be the New World Order, the Novus Ordo Seclorum. That's what they're after.
If they succeed, from their own documents that you've researched, what will the New World Order look like when they finally put the capstone on the pyramid?
Well, first of all, everybody will be a slave to government. You will be working for government if you have a job. And secondly, I believe that there will be a physical extermination of many, many millions of people. They've done it everywhere they've taken over. They did it in Russia. They did it in China. They did it in Laos. They did it in Cambodia. Every place where total government has taken over, there has been carnage of immense proportions. Now, you got a guy like, who's the guy running around in his little boat, the great oceanographer,
Jacques Cousteau.
Jacques Cousteau. Did you ever see what he said?
Yeah, we've got to kill 350-something thousand people a day. It's a terrible thing to say that, but it's even more terrible not to say it and not to do
That's
it.
Right.
And specifically, go over that. The United Nations 1996 Biological Diversity Assessment says they got to get rid of 80% of us. All these public statements by Prince Philip. I mean, this is what they do. This is what they're into. Explain that to people.
Well, why would you want to do that except that you hate mankind, except that you have a diabolical determination to rule the world, and you're going to get a lot of people out of the way, and you're going to scare the rest into submission by killing so many. Cousteau is supposed to be a nice man. He's worried about the oceans and everything else, but he actually said what you said. I think it was 435,000 a day until we get down to a level of about 1 million people.
Yeah, well, when I make films, I actually go to the library to pull the quotes.
Yeah.
And
that was appeared, incidentally. That appeared in a United Nations document.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
And so the reason people will then find our numbers and go, well, I found this, I found that. Cousteau said that dozens of times, different numbers, 300 and something, 400 and something, 500 and something. Right. In a PBS interview he did right before he died in France. It was an interview in his garden. There's video of it. I mean, he said it constantly, just like Prince Philip in books and Reuters articles and German newspapers said, I want to come back reincarnated as a virus to kill 80% of the population. So there's a lot of different quotes, but you're absolutely right. And then you've got Walter Cronkite saying it. You've got Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with his daddy heading up Planned Parenthood, a eugenics organization. And from my research, what I cover in Endgame, and I want to get your take on this, sir, you had eugenics being the dominant scientific craze 100 years ago. It's what founded a lot of institutions here. The Rockefellers funded it in England, in Germany, the Kaiser Wilhelm Scientific Research Group. that did all of that, and they just went into being crypto or secret eugenicists, and so that's kind of their rationale and excuse. Then we have the UT professor, Dr. Pianka, saying kill 90% of us, made national news. When you go to these biology departments, this is the majority view, and when he was given an award at the Texas Academy of Sciences, it was in the newspaper, he got a 95% standing ovation. I had the reporter on. He said it was like being in a nightmare science fiction movie. They had tears of joy with a 3-minute standing ovation when he projected red skulls on a wall and said, I can't wait till Ebola kills 90% of people.
Yeah, and they keep saying that Adolf Hitler is something we have to worry about. No, we have to worry about Adolf Hitler mentality, which is what these people have.
Can you specifically get to more of what their master plan will be like from your deep study?
It's very simple. Total government and then suppression. Suppression of anybody who wants to be free. Suppression of anybody who wants to protect his own home with his own weapons. Certainly that.